Go to the Pleasant Grove City Council work session on this March the 15th, 2022. And we have all the council present and accounted for, along with some of our city staff. We will now go to our first item here and invite Kimberly to come forward and address us on our Victim Advocate program.
This is always my favorite time when I get to come and talk to you guys. And you all go, oh, dang, I don't want her here. No. I first of all wanted to start by introducing you to Brandy. She's our part-time advocate. She started in October, end of October, beginning November. Yeah. So I'm going to let her kind of tell you a little bit about herself real quick. I will first say, has done a fabulous job. She came with some experience that's been wonderful, and she has been very supportive and just an amazing addition to our staff. So,
she's sweet. So I'm Brandy. I've lived in Pleasant Grove my whole life. It's Green. Yeah.
Oh, I should have said that, I guess. Huh?
It's okay. Yeah, my grandparents have lived here forever. It was Jim and Marilyn Green. So I'm sure most of you have at least heard of them. Yes. So yeah, I've just been here my whole life. I have 4 kids, and most of them are getting big now. And so from 22 to 7, it gives me a lot of extra experience, and it's been good. So, but I've loved it.
What got you interested in being part of the Victims Advocate team?
So I actually was part of the rape crisis team for the refuge, and we had an advocate come for that training and talk about what they do, and I just was like, I want to do that someday. And at the time I was kind of like, I was still in my bachelor's program, so I wasn't in a place where I could do that yet, but as soon as I could, I was like, this would be a good option for me. So it's been really great. So, but I worked for DCFS before this, which has been really helpful. Like, a lot of the information that I know from that has been very helpful. So it's been a really good transition.
Great experience to have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so you guys know that I like to give you the statistics in our city, which is always fun. This year I chose to kind of go over statistics from a certain time period. So I started with the fiscal year, so July 1st to today, so the 15th. And then I compared it to last fiscal year from 2020 to March 15th of 2021. So I just wanted to see if we'd increased, maybe how our caseload had been. And as I was going through, I noticed that our sexual assaults were pretty much the same. They were within 2 of each other, so not much of a difference. Our domestic violence was down just like a couple, like 2, I think it was 4. It was down 4, so that's good, right? Down 4, just for like 4 people. So not percent-wise, I'm doing it in numbers. But then our DCFS cases were, last year in 2020 to 21, were 98 at this point, and we are now at 139. So last year, or not even last year, but this year, the last statistic I found out is that our DCFS cases and our investigators are making up 17% of the CJC interviews. I think that's gone up since the statistic was like 4 months ago or 5 months ago. I think our statistics have gone up quite a bit. And I've been privy to go to some of those interviews and help victims while we're there, support the families as we're there. And that's been really eye-opening and a great experience for me. But it does show me kind of just what they do and how serious it is. So our stalking increased by 60% this year. Our stalking cases, 60%. And our harassment cases went up by 21. 60%. I did percent on that because I felt like that was a really significant number for stalking. And a lot of those cases, I mean, I've dealt with all of these cases, either me or the part-time advocate, but mostly I deal with all of the DCFS, the child crime, stalking, sex assaults. Now that I've got Brandy, I've been assigning her a few because she has that training, and I didn't want to give them away to somebody that hadn't had that sexual assault training or that stalking training. So We've had, our harassment went from, we have 98 this year so far. Mental subjects went up this year also to 52 so far. Suicide attempts and completions have gone up as well this year. I think we're at 65. Death investigations went up. It only went up by 4, but that takes our investigators out 4 more times already at this point. And so in the full year, I decided to do a full year statistic for you real quick. From July 1st of 2020 to March 15th of 2021, victim services, so the advocates, me and Jennifer at the time, gave 4,380 services that year, victim services. So what we did is, that's when we represent in court, that's when we give packets out, that's when we take phone calls, that's when we go on scene, that's when we do anything that has to do with victim-related stuff, so safety planning, which is super important. So we gave 4,380 services in 12 months. So this year, I decided to just look and see what we were at from our fiscal year this year to today. And we are already at 3,861. So 3,861. So we're only like 562 less than we were all of last year. So by the end of this year, I imagine we'll be up at least 600. We're giving about roughly probably 1,350 victim services every quarter, so every 3 months. So we're really busy. It's been super fun, but it's not always fun, but we really love the people that we serve, and we're honored to do that. As far as some things that we've implemented in our department that have been really important to me, and I did speak about this one time, we hadn't quite done all of it training-wise, was the lethality assessment protocol. It's called the Lethality Assessment Protocol, and what that is it's an evidence-based protocol. It's been designed for law enforcement first responders to ask victims a series of like 11 questions, okay? These questions are based on this Maryland model research that this guy named Campbell did, and it's associated basically with lethality. So what it determines is it provides an easy and effective method to identify victims of domestic violence who are at the highest risk of being seriously injured or killed by their intimate partner. Very important. This assessment, the first year I was a victim advocate, I ended up in a training in Salt Lake City because I was looking for trainings. I was trying to figure out what to do. And I signed up for a training and didn't realize it was all officers and then me. And so I went, I was like, whatever, I was the only non-badge, non-gun wearing person there. But they talked a lot about the lethality assessment and where it began in Utah. And hardly any agencies, not one in Utah County, had implemented it yet. So I think one was starting to. So I went forward and tried to get trained in lethality assessment and what that would entail, and worked with Mike Smith, and then I have now worked with our current chief to, make sure that this was implemented. We wanted to get it done earlier, but we had some hiccups, with different things, moving buildings and everything, and being super busy. But with the support of my chief, we've gone through and we've made sure that this is implemented. What these questions do is if they ask these questions, and there's a copy of those questions for you guys there that we've taken the protocol sheet and we've made it so it's more Pleasant Grove friendly with our badge and our information on it. What that does is you can read through it and it will tell you, but those questions will trigger a protocol. If they trigger a high-risk protocol, then the officer, once he asks those questions, he will call the women's shelter, and he will ask, for them to please speak with the victim. And the victim doesn't have to go to the shelter, but it kind of gives them immediate access to an advocate, because I can't take calls 24/7. So it gives them immediate access to the shelter. One really good thing about this, working with the shelter, and we've also worked with the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition, is we have what's called a memorandum of understanding, where if we have someone at high risk, because of that signed memorandum of understanding, we can immediately get them into shelter. Now, some cities have kind of gone their own way, but the shelter doesn't have that understanding, and they're usually quite full. But they will make a bed on the floor, they will find another shelter, they will do whatever it takes if Pleasant Grove calls and says, we have someone that needs shelter. That happened 2 times in December, I believe, November, December, where I was able to call the shelter. I sat through the lethality assessment screening with an officer, and we were able to trigger that protocol and get someone in safe shelter. So that was great. And when I first learned about it, and I'm not going to talk about the agency that first did it because I don't know. I learned this at a training, but they started the lethality assessment, and the lieutenant there thought it was an amazing thing to start and to get his agency involved with. So one of their first calls that year happened to be with a woman who she had been with an ex-husband, and he was very violent with her, and she had a very high rating on the protocol. Then when the officers went out, they went out, they got her, they said, we need you to call the shelter. They were able to get her into a shelter. Well, that night they found the guy who didn't know she was home around her home, and inside his vehicle he had several guns, bombs, different things. And so, once they arrested him and got him to the jail, they realized that this protocol probably saved her life by giving her that immediate access to the shelter. So it's very important, and it's very evidence-based that it saved lives. Another thing that we've done, and this is pretty brief, is we've done some strangulation screening. So, and this is something that, just so you know, I've been really honored to be able to train the officers, sit with my lieutenant, my captain, my chief, whoever is, there in those meetings. We will train the officers, and it's been a great opportunity for me to be able to train the officers and tell them, like, maybe what the victim mindset is and how things are working. With the strangulation screening, investigators and our officers can use it. Now, this is kind of a checklist, so they can assess the medical or the different, outcome of that strangulation on a victim. I can tell you that before this assessment was used in our department, I remember a time where I got called out late at night on a victim's, it was a pretty bad domestic violence. Well, she was able to get out and go stay with a friend. Well, that night I called her, and I could tell that she'd been strangled. And I said to her, I can hear in your voice that you have a very hoarse voice. Are you okay? And she said, my throat is swelling. So I called 911. I got an ambulance down to Payson, and they were able to take her to the hospital and get her the services she needed. And there were no marks to show that strangulation, but it depends on, that assessment kind of shows the different types of strangulation and where those things can happen, because those problems aren't sometimes immediate, or they're not sometimes something that is visually seen. So I think it's really important that we're implementing these 2 things. Another thing that's really good about both assessments that we've trained the officers on is they are very good for the prosecution. Most judges know about the lethality assessment. Prosecutors should know about the lethality assessment and be trained, as well as the strangulation form. I know that at the district court level, the strangulation form is sometimes the only thing that helps it get screened in as a 3rd-degree felony or a Class A. So it's very important that these papers are submitted so that these screening teams that are sometimes newer, especially at our county right now, those screening teams can say, okay, this is lethal, this is important. So, so really quickly, because I know I've taken my time now, I just wanted to quickly tell you, last year we had some extra money with grant funding, and we were able to do quite a few things. We were able to get some monitors for the advocate office, a laptop for victims to use when they come in to fill out a protective order or something. We were able to get child tablets so that they could use that if they came in with a parent or they needed something to do. And we were able to make the outside of the advocate office a nice seating place for if we had a victim in the office that had like a mom with her or something, which has happened quite a bit. So with that money, we also made new brochures. We have a crime victim rights brochure that talks about the victim's rights and order of protection, which by law we should have been giving out all along, but we didn't know, or what we really had was a packet full of stapled papers that looked like they came from 1995. Or we had a death brochure that had, for a full arrest or someone that just lost a loved one, we had a green booklet stapled together that I was embarrassed to give out when I went on scene. We had a sexual assault kit that just was not streamlined to our survivors of sexual assault. And it was I even had victims look through it that weren't from our city and said, can you tell me what this does for you? Does this help you, or does this trigger you? Or are you even gonna look at it because it's overwhelming? All of them said the things we used to give out were overwhelming. So I took some of that funding and I took Jennifer's smart brain to help me create some, I would tell her what I wanted, and she's good at the computer, so she helped me get some things done with booklets and trifolds. And this one we did a few years ago that the department did pay for, which is our victim resource guide. Our victim rights guide, our sexual survivors guide, as well as our after loss bereavement guide are all something that we did in the last year. And they were all funded, VOCA funded as far as the printing costs, and then Jen just kind of, used her brain and got that done. But I just kind of wanted to share with you some things that we have improved and we're hoping to continually improve. And I know that the things I do can be really depressing or triggering for people. So in closing, I just wanted to bring something positive. One of the biggest things that I appreciate the most in my job is the support of my captain, my chief, my lieutenants, my sergeants, and all of my officers. They've been completely short-staffed, and they still come in, and they still debrief with me, and they still, we still staff cases all the time. I get emails from officers now, and they'll come in my office and say, hey, make sure you follow up with this one, and usually I already have. But they're doing all these great things, working so hard on their reports, and we're training them, and we're having training meetings, and especially in patrol where we're getting some of this training that they really, really needed. I mean, we've got 3 new guys on FTO, and a ton of new officers in the last 2 years, and they're all working so hard, and our sergeants and the people that are training them are working so hard. And I can just tell you that I work with the very, very best police team in the entire world. So that is my positive note, is that I have the best team. And so thank you guys. Any questions? Sorry it took so long.
Thank you, Kim. Having worked with you in the past, and I want the council to know this, is you do an excellent job.
Thank you.
And
I
those
appreciate that.
And those victims out there do appreciate it, because I've had them tell me that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me that. It means a lot. My goal is to let go of my ego and just make sure that I'm doing what is best for them, not what I think they should be doing, but what they need. And I think that's really how we give the best victim services. So I appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I do have one question.
Okay. You're not going to ask me about House Bill whatever, right?
No, I'm not going to ask you about
Remember
House Bill
that
whatever.
time?
Well, and you know that this is a very near and dear subject to me. What are you two doing for your mental health?
I'm sometimes better at that than others, to be honest. This last year has been a tough one for me. We're blessed in our department to have Evan Coates, who will come in. He's done some EMDR I went on a really tragic
Same.
death that was really difficult for me. And one of the things he did through my EMDR was say you didn't hinder an investigation. And so every time I do a case, I am OCD person, so every time I look at the case and I go, did I hinder an investigation, or am I not hindering an investigation? And that's really helped me feel comfortable in the job that I do. As far as my mental health, though, Evan's been great. I like to hang out with my husband and my kids and my grandkids. I do Mimi Friday preschool, whatever. And I'm learning to play the drums, which is crazy, but I'm trying. Yeah, I have my first lesson. I was like, okay, this year I'm gonna learn to play the drums. And I need to start, I've got some goals, so hopefully this year I'll do a little bit better, because there are times when I've been pretty tired. So, not gonna lie.
No, that's a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's a lot of cases.
Yeah. So I tend to, I have moments where I do much better than others too. I think that's pretty normal, but I'm also going to school, I have an internship, I have a job, like I'm just busy. So it's hard sometimes to do stuff, but I try really hard to make sure that like I'm mindful of what my emotions are. And if I've had a hard day, I'll make sure I debrief with Kim or I talk to somebody else who is, I have a therapist. I think everyone should have a therapist. So I definitely am aware of that, and I'm very mindful of things that are helpful. And I actually have created a list, and so if I'm like really struggling, I don't have to think. I can just look at the list and be like, that will work for me right now. So I'm very aware that I have to be mindful of that, because otherwise you'll burn out real fast.
Yeah, and Brandy's been really good because I used to be a lot better at that, and this year's been rough. But Brandy came in, and we just kind of clicked immediately, which has been really great because Brandy and I do debrief every single case. So
Okay.
whether I assign it to Brandy or I take it myself, we talk about every client and every case, especially weekly when there's court. We make sure that there's, things sent out for those victims and follow-ups. And then Brandy and I, if we are just having a cruddy day, we might take a few minutes to say, how was your weekend? Oh, yeah, mine. And it's been really helpful. Like, she's great to talk to. So we really do kind of rely on each other, I think. I could say that for her, too.
Yeah, I think so.
We've.
Well, and I come from, like, my ex-husband was very abusive, and so I come from the perspective of an abusive situation, and so once in a while, Kim will say something, and I'll be like, well, actually, she's probably not thinking about that right now.
Yeah,
This
it's
isn't
been
a
great.
thought, because right now, this is what she's concerned with. So
Yeah.
it's been really good to be able to bring that perspective, even though it came from a really crappy
Yeah,
place.
she has the adult perspective and I have the child perspective. So we
Oh,
kind of,
that's cool.
we
Yeah,
work well together.
do.
It's been great.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? And thank you very much for getting these updated. They're really nice.
They really are.
These are great. I mean, okay. All right. Now move on to our next work session item, which we've all been waiting for, and it's our budget.
Okay, yeah. So in your Dropbox, there's a file under this, for the council meeting today, said budget discussion, so you have, those are your electronic copies. Denise is handing you out your hard copies, and so if, as you get going, if for some reason you misplace the hard copies, you do have those electronic copies available in the Dropbox. In fact, there is a couple items in the Dropbox, one that I didn't get printed off that we'll review, and probably need you to pull up on your Dropbox as we go when I get there. So if you have the hard copies, we are actually, they're not necessarily in the order we're going to go. So we will start with the one pager, which is the one that looks like this. That will be the first one that we're going to take a look at. You're familiar with our format when we do this. Basically, on the left-hand side is our revenue. We see a strong sales tax response, property tax. Now, the property tax increase that we will be receiving is due to new growth in our city, so that's not us messing with the rate. It's just if we do have new buildings that come in. Sorry, is everybody where we're at?
Okay, got it.
And so Denise goes through, estimates those based on what the past has looked like, and kind of looking into the future. Other funding, we have the Class C transfer and cemetery expansion transfer. We'll circle back to those in just a minute because they play into the expense side. So on the right-hand side is the expense side for what we are recommending as staff to use these new monies to fund. We have, on the right-hand side, a 5% increase for all employees. So how we're going to work that, how much of that's going to be merit-based, how much of it's going to be COLA, we're still trying to determine what that looks like, with the intention of, again, trying to get our salaries competitive to what the market tells us. So we're recommending 5% for everybody. We are also have some money set aside for part-time wages. which would be roughly, we did this last year, $1 per hour. This year, we're looking at $1 per hour, but we're probably going to do a little differently. It'll be a little more targeted this year. There are some positions that probably need more than $1 an hour, maybe $2 an hour, and there's some positions that we're probably okay to kind of keep as is. And so we'll use that money to target where that money needs to go in order to retain. There's a big battleground right now for hourly employees, and this just goes across the board, and we're a part of that as well. So whether that's our summer help, whether it's our permanent part-timers, whether it's front desk at the rec, we need to make sure our part-time wages are competitive as well. We have the council compensation number in there. We have our medical insurance increase in there. Initially, we had estimated a 10% increase. We came in at 4.5%. So that did save us some money in the general fund. We have our commitment for the health center theater contribution. That's out of the general fund yearly, $150,000. And then we have $750,000 built in for the public works facility. So this one right now is still to be determined. In 2 weeks, on the 29th, we will have options for you when we talk about public works, storm drain, cemetery. We used to have it all into one big project, and there was an ability for us to fund it. This was going to be the general fund contribution. We are looking at breaking that up, and so we will present the options to you on what we want to fund now and what we want to push for another year or two. So depending on what we fund now and what we push could have an effect on what that number is in our budget, that's $750,000. So as we get into April, we'll have a little better feel for where we're at with that money. We have our detective pay increase. This is something we've already implemented, so that's accounted for here. And then what we've done is we've taken each position that we are recommending as staff that is funded, and we've prioritized them 1 through 5 so that you have an idea of where staff is prioritizing those. And then as we get a little bit later into this, we'll show you the positions that are not funded that were requested by the department heads. And we also have prioritized those. So if the council wants to shuffle those, you can let us know, okay, we want to shuffle, we want to fund this position and maybe not fund this position. So the permit tech is number 1, and the reason why that's number 1 is because that we've already have started that person, so it does need to be built into next year's budget. Number 2 would be another police officer. Number 3 would be another firefighter. Number 4 would be a parks operator, so that'd be another parks employee, and number 5 is our what I'm referring to as our HR generalist.
So Scott, just help me understand, is that the ranking of need, or is that, why are we, or is that just 5 people, or is that, why 1 versus 5?
In case the council feels like they want to move.
Oh, I see, okay. So it's priority.
Priority,
Got it.
yes, thank you. The firefighter, which we have at number 3, now we have applied for a SAFER grant. If we get the SAFER grant, that would fund 3 firefighters for 3 years, paid for by the federal government. So if that happens, and this is part of the reason we've ranked them, is that at that point, we now have $90,000 that we could put towards another employee. And so then we could talk about what employee we would want to hire if we get the SAFER grant. So that's, again, that's the part of the reason that we're doing that.
And when will we know about that?
Before June?
Well,
And that,
June, that's when they awarded it was last June, when they awarded the last.
and that could be used for any first responder or specific to fire?
just fire, yep, 3 positions, fully funded. So at the end of 3 years, we need to make sure we have $300,000 built into the budget in order to fund those, because now it's on us. But our intention was over time to get full-time firefighters, and so maybe we were gonna get 3 in the next 3 years. Well, we can get 3 today and then have those funded, so that's a bonus to us. But that will be a budgeting thing that we'll just need to keep in mind as we go. I think these are all self-explanatory. I think the HR generalist, I want to make sure that you understand the intentions of what we're trying to do here. We have Kyler, who is the assistant to me, but Kyler's main responsibility is HR. And so that's where he spends a large majority of his time. What I would like is that we hire a HR person. We take all of Kyler's HR duties, give it to this person, and then we free up Kyler to do administrative help for the things that are on my plate. So that's the intention of why we would have this position. Now, does everybody understand what we're doing? I mean, I got an email from you, Todd, that talked about a HR person that could help, and was the intention to replace this position with
Yeah.
that?
It was this position, funded. So we can
Okay.
take it offline.
Okay, we'll talk offline, okay. So we have, that's where we're at, 1 through 5 there. We also, the last item on there is operational budget needs for $30,500. So these were operational items that were requested by the departments that were kind of small in nature. So $2,000, $3,000 each. We lumped some of those together, figured we can fund those and put them into the budget. And in a minute, we'll review specifically what those are. What we've done is split this into 2 different groupings. So the bottom group is what we call the property tax discussion, that if the city council would like to entertain holding the rate of the property tax, that would generate what we are estimating. And keep in mind, we're not going to know this till June. And so we're estimating the best we can of what our assessed valuation is going to go up. Now, in the past, it's been right around 10%, but last year's valuation of property was unprecedented, I think unprecedented. And so we don't know if our valuation is going to go up 15% or 20%, or maybe it's just going to stay at 10. I don't know how the county's going to handle that, and they don't tell us that until June. So right now, we're working off the assumption that it will be a 10%, our assessed valuation will go up 10%. Which means if we hold our rate, that would generate another $319,000. And that money would be used to hire the police officer and the firefighter, and then also give public safety an extra 3% wage increase. So both police and fire would get 8% increases, and the rest of the employees would get 5%. So that would be on the back of the holding the rate for the property tax. If we get the SAFER grant and we're now going to have $90,000, our recommendation would be to hire another police officer with that money, since that's what we'll be portraying to the public, that this money, if we're going to hold the rate, will be used for public safety, then we'd recommend that we get 2 police officers. When we were in our budget and planning retreat, we talked, one of the requests, I think it was Diana, I can't remember, one of the council members, that if we did 8% across the board, what would that cost be? And so where you see the 2 asterisks here, that is an extra $186,000 to the general fund. If you look on the right-hand side, most of the way down, it says unallocated, $229,000. We're still not quite balanced in that sense. Part of this is going to depend on how our sales tax receipts come in this month and next month. There might be some leeway there to move that. There might be, depending on what we're going to fund that we currently have in for our public works facility, that could free up some general fund dollars that would help balance that out to 0. Okay, a lot going on there. Are there any questions?
Sorry, Scott, what did you say the operational budget needs were? Right here on the 30,500?
We have if you want, I can just cover those now. That is on... Oh, did you?
Yes, oh, it will be on yours.
Thank you.
There, it's on page 2, Sid, right here.
Request.
Yeah, so the next thing we're going to review is the capital, which is this, which is stapled together.
Okay.
And on the back side of that, it will have the operational needs under the green, and there's a little bracket there that says $30,500. That breaks down that $30,500. So if you want, we can just review that now. I mean, it's you know, like I said, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 items. These are items that were requested by the department heads that were more in a nature of renewing every year. I mean, these were yearly operational expenses. These were not capital expenses. So we like to allocate them as operational and build them into the budget. So that's where that 30,500 comes from.
Any other questions on those?
Okay, one of the requests from City Council, and this is something that's in your packet. I did not, I just tried to print it and it wasn't working for me, but we do have a history of increases specific to public safety that show what we've done in the past 5 years. And so it's in your, if you have your Dropbox, you can pull it up. I think it's under public safety past increases. In 2017 and 2018, we did 2% for both police and fire. 2019 was 3%. Both 2020 and 2021 were years that we were trying to make some moves on our wages, in essence, trying to get caught up with what the market, through market analysis. And in 2020, we front-loaded police and fire, and then in 2021, we got the rest of the employees. We broke that up into 2 years. But there were substantial raises each year really for all employees, but this one is specific to public safety that we have. And if you remember, we did not do a % increase across the board. We did flat rates for people. And so on the police for 2020, you'll see a range between 4.6% and 8.2%. So because it was a flat rate, if you were lower on the pay scale, your % increase was larger than if you were on the upper end of the pay scale, your % increase was smaller. And so that just shows that we, you know, between whatever the employees were getting, it was between 4.6 and 8.2. For the fire department that year was 5.6 to 7.9%. That was the increase. And then 2021, again, we did it based on dollars. Well, we had a 2% increase, and then we did some market analysis on top of that. So it was police 4.5% and 6.4%, between 4.5% and 6.4%, and fire was between 3.9% and 4.6%. Now also, in both police and fire, we do have what's called our career path program. So when you hit certain benchmarks, you get a 50-cent increase or a $1 increase. So if you're doing certain certifications or you've put in a certain amount of time here with the city, then there's a bump there. So that's not accounted for in here. What we're showing you is just what the council's allocated. So certain individuals in both police and fire, just depending on certifications they've got or how long they've been with the city, they've gotten some minor bumps in there as well.
Scott?
Yeah.
I think I was asking for if we had, how close we were to midpoint on some of the key individuals too.
Yeah.
Is that coming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, in a nutshell, so we've done our market analysis as staff, and we are comparing against our neighbors that are like-sized cities. So those cities that are 10,000 population more or 10,000 population less. So that's Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain, American Fork, Lone Peak is part of that. And so we're looking at those markets, we're looking at what they're making, and we're saying, okay, where are we in comparison to that market? And right now, we're probably $1.50 to $2 low compared to that market, which the 8% will get us pretty caught up back into that market as we've done our analysis.
But the increases that we did last year, the year before, where did that bring us to? Was
Well,
that
at
mid-range?
first, in 2020, it got us back to market, but, I mean, a lot of other places have done some increases more than 3% over the last 2 years.
And are there other factors being considered besides population? You know, some fire departments are with a union, or they're unified. Some have full-time, part-time, some are even volunteer. Are we looking at other factors rather than just population?
Yeah, we're making sure it's apples to apples. So for instance, Eagle Mountain, they're with Unified Fire, so we're not comparing to them. They're a huge organization. Saratoga Springs has a similar sized city to us. They have a full-time department like us, so we're comparing to them. Springville and Spanish Fork are kind of hybrids. They have some a few part-time, or full-timers, but mostly part-timers. And so it's tricky to compare ours with them. So really police is a little more straightforward. Fire's a little bit different because we do have different hybrids of how those are run. But as we put the numbers together, we are making sure it's apples to apples.
So in 2020, both police and fire were up to market?
We felt like we got pretty close. Yeah, according to the study that we had done, yeah.
And
Well,
was that our
sorry.
study? Did we pay somebody to do the
No,
study?
that was the Mike Swallow study.
And was that for all positions or
Uh-huh.
admin, like what positions was?
It was
got up
for
to
all of
market?
them.
Okay.
It was for all. It was, sorry, we broke it up into 2 years. We did 2020 and 2021. We couldn't get all the way there in 2020. But we front-loaded public safety because that was where our pressure point was as far as employees leaving. And so that's where we put our focus in 2020. And then in 2021, there was still a decent-sized increase, but then it was Public Works had better raises in 2021 because they didn't get front-loaded like public safety did. So it was in the aggregate over the 2 years.
Why would employees feel like that study was wrong,
What study?
the wage study?
I don't know.
I mean, I've heard some employees think that it was conducted wrong or done wrong, or it was some way.
Well, probably because they didn't get the raise they thought they were going to get.
Is that, and that could be the reason.
I've
I'm
never had an
asking-
employee come to me and say the study's wrong, so I can't speak specifically to that. If there's employees talking about it, they're not talking to me about that.
Okay.
If they want to come and meet with me and us go over the study, I'd be more than happy to do that. So I understand that there's rumbling sometimes in organizations, but all I can do is answer whatever I'm asked.
Okay,
So,
that's fair, that's fair.
okay, shall we move on to capital?
Any other questions where we're at? We're good. Okay, let's move on.
I just want to make a commentary. Denise is great. I think you guys know this, but I mean, I have this idea in my mind how I want this thing presented and rolled out, and I try to articulate that to her, and she just does it exactly how it works in my mind, so that we can make this as good as we can, as understandable as we can, because we're talking about a lot of moving parts and a lot of money and a lot of different projects. So I don't know, thank you, Denise, for your work and what you do.
She goes on good vacations, too.
I know, and we're okay with that,
Yes, absolutely.
because we want to keep her around. Okay, I got to put my glasses on for this one, sorry, I'm getting old.
Thank you, Denise, for making this the smallest print on the.
Yes,
I didn't bring my glasses. Like, what? It's 12 on, 11.
so it is in your packet if you need to blow it up. Of course, we had a lot of requests, and we funded most of the capital requests, not all. We'll go over the things that we're recommending that aren't funded and what we're recommending that are funded. Our process, generally speaking, is we have the department heads turn in their request, what we call our supplementals. They create a narrative, which is attached to this, so you can go through, and this is the department head's justification on each of these items. If you read through that and you're not quite sure, or you want more information, feel free to call a department head and say, hey, can you give me a little more information about this request so I can understand it better? That's would be great and completely fair. Want to make sure that council has an understanding of where the money's going. Once these are submitted, then Denise is the one that takes them, puts them all in a spreadsheet by department, and then we sit back down with the department heads and we ask them to rank their requests from highest priority to lowest priority, so that if there are certain things that can't get funded, that we're cutting the things that are on the lowest of their priority levels. And so once we do that, then we reconfigure the sheet, which is what you see. We review it with the department heads for any final questions or comments on this before it's presented to council, and then we present it to you. Keeping in mind, this is a recommendation from staff. Council ultimately has the say in where the money's spent. And so if there are other thoughts and feelings on how this should be done, that's part of what this meeting's for, but also our next meeting. I mean, there's a lot of information you're getting here, and it's understood that you're not going to absorb every single part of this. And so when we meet again on the 29th, we'll bring this list back and we'll have further discussion. If there's things right off the top of your head that you want to have discussed, then that's great. We can do that. As far as the capital requests, I'm going to hit some of the bigger items. Again, if there are, if you look at this and would like an explanation today that's maybe not covered in the narrative, we do have the department heads here. They can answer those questions. So starting from the top of the list, I'll go down as we go, and I'll try to make sure you're following me as we go. So the G Mountain project, that is the city's commitment to help backstop any shortfalls in fundraising. The intention is to fundraise that whole cost and not have any city expense. But if for some reason they don't quite get there, we've committed to help when I say we've committed, we've given them the verbal. Of course, the council has to approve. We talked about this in the retreat, and the council was okay with us communicating that to them. And so this is the budget part of that. We do have in the cemetery, one of the biggest requests was to redo our sprinkling system that's in the old part of the cemetery. Right now, that's all hand done.
And question about that, Scott, because
Yeah.
right here it says 668, and then on the other page it says 300 something.
Uh-huh.
Where's the difference coming
I
in?
was just heading there.
Oh, okay, okay, sorry.
So their request was to do the sprinkling system. To do the whole thing was $668,000. And what we're saying is that we're recommending we do it in 2 phases. So phase 1 would be 300, we just split it in half. They would get $334,000. They could do half the cemetery this year. And then hopefully we have enough funding, they can come back and do the second half next year. So that's the recommendation from staff, is that we just phase that into 2 items, just because of the nature of how big that request was. Cemetery also has a backhoe on there for $101,000. Community development is looking at what's just called the downstairs renovation. So we've hired a new employee, brand new employee, to a new position. We don't have a place for them. So we're looking at putting some cubicles and some things downstairs. And if we get our HR generalist and things like that, we're gonna need a place for them to be too. So in essence, we have room downstairs. We just need to get cubicles, chairs, computers, things like that, so that they have a workplace. In engineering, we have Safe Routes to School grant funding. We are partially funded through a grant. We have to match that grant. These are the matches. These are roughly 50 cents on the dollar, so it makes sense for us to do those. On the for the fire department, we have portable.
Scott?
Yes.
Sorry. Rec center, the front desk, is that?
So
going-
that's funded and still in process.
Okay, all right,
Talked to Tyler about that the other day. He finally has a contractor on board that's willing to do it.
okay.
And hopefully that gets done the next couple months. So that one's already funded. We have portable and mobile radio replacement in the fire. We also have the same in the police, $150,000. So this is just the nature of radio equipment. It does change. That technology changes. The state also changes how they're going to handle their radios, and we just have to react. Now, we're hoping to get some grant money to help with this, but until we get the grant money, then we'd like to build the money into the budget.
Talk to me afterwards,
On the radios?
Central 911, yeah.
Okay.
Talk to me.
Hey, Scott,
Yeah.
Drew and I were talking earlier, and it sounds like there's going to be some funding, but we're not sure what that's going to be, and it'll probably be in July. So we just talked about putting it on here so we know, because we just don't know
Yeah.
what the cost is, or grants or matches.
Yeah, so if we get grants, then that money just rolls back into the general fund balance, or into the capital general fund balance, which can be reallocated if we get the grant funding. We are recommending another ambulance. So we would have 2 new ambulances and a new engine, and that should set us up in the fire department, I think, for a while. So we do have that in here. Libraries, all their items were fairly small. Now, if you look off to the right, so we have the amount, and then we have says one-time general fund capital, so that comes out of the general fund capital account. We have something that says other funds. So some of these projects, we have a fund balance. For instance, in our swim pool fund and in our recreation fund, they have a little bit of savings money in there. So as we talk about some of these projects, we'll use some of that fund balance to do that. We have a list for the care tax funding. So some of these requests qualify under care tax. And so if they do qualify under care tax, we'd use the care tax to do that. And then on the far right would be things that we would want to do yearly with the care tax. And we're going to break the care tax down here in just a minute, and I'll go over that in more detail. At parks, the Discovery Park surface, that has like a 5-year shelf life on it, and so we need to replace the surface to that, which is $50,000. We also have the 600 North Detention Basin. That was something that we discussed a month or two ago, to take that detention basin.
It's $80,000?
Yeah.
That's just the general fund portion.
Yeah. So the storm drain portion, storm drain account will fix the storm drain stuff, but in order to landscape and to put in an irrigation system, that's our estimate for that.
So that's just grassing it with sprinklers?
Yep. Taking down the fence and making it better property, in a sense. Right now, it just doesn't look good.
Okay.
We also have, under parks, we have shade covers, spectator shade covers at both Discovery Park and Shannon Field. These are both decent, pretty good sized ticket items. So what these are is right above the bleachers. These double as two things. One is for shade, so if it's 90 degrees and you're sitting at a game, this provides shade. But also, if there's a foul ball, it will catch the foul ball. So we don't have foul balls landing on people's heads that are watching the game. So we have ball fields at Discovery and Shannon, and what we're recommending is we just do both of those and get those done. The Shannon Field would come out of the care tax. The Discovery Park would, most of that funding will come out of the one-time general capital. We have, under the police, we have a new vehicle. If we're going to get a new police officer, we need a new vehicle and equipment for them. We have ammunition in there. We have also the portable radios in there for $150,000. Recreation has, we have our fitness equipment on a 3-year replacement. They want to do something similar with weights, so they're requesting $20,000, of which we'd use care tax, but that would be an ongoing thing where $20,000 not enough to replace all the weight machines and the weights, but that would allow us to replace a machine or two every year and update our equipment that way. So again, that would be out of the care tax funding. One of the other big ticket items is the pool leveling project, which is our swim pool on the southwest side has sunk. And so when you're out there, the water just kind of goes over the top of it. We need to come in and raise that. That's a pretty big project, but that is $300,000. So $200,000 of that would come out of the swim pool fund balance, and then $100,000 out of the general capital. We're also looking at creating a replacement program for our HVAC units on top of the rec center. Our rec center is now getting to an age where we need to consider these types of things. The full cost is $350,000 to do them. We're recommending we do 2 of them a year. I think there's 20 units, and so 2 a year, we would do $35,000 a year and just do that year after year after year until we get them replaced. The pool lobby and locker room, we want to upgrade that. That would come out of care tax. We have money for LED lighting in the rec center to get those moved to LEDs. And then for streets, we have the VW grant. We have a match that we still need to have in order to get one of the new big trucks through that, and then also another bobtail dump truck. So that's what we're recommending for funding. Let's go to what we're not recommending so that we can have the full discussion. So if you just flip over on the back under the yellow where it says capital unfunded, we have phase 2 of the automated irrigation system. We also have a dump truck request for cemetery that we're recommending not funding. Community development wanted to restore their break room. So it used to be the old dispatch break room and could use an upgrade. So for right now, we're going to put a hold on that one. Fire department had a couple staff vehicles. They had our chief, deputy chief, battalion chief, they all have vehicles. And the request was to change them all out this year. And we suggested we just do one this year, one next year, one the year after. So we broke it up that way. Library had outdoor patio furniture. Parks had a staff vehicle. Police had a staff vehicle. Recreation had the rooftop units, the ones that we're not going to fund. And then streets had what's called a mastic mixer. So those are recommended as not funded. So anything, I know there's a lot we just went over there. Is there any specific questions or any specific items that you would want to consider moving? And if you're still absorbing, we can move that to, we can continue that discussion on March 29th.
I just want to say this is a lot of work, and clearly, so congratulations on, I bet this last couple weeks has been very busy.
Thanks, Denise.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together. This is a lot of information, and obviously, we need time to digest and.
Yes. Okay, so also on the back side of that is the operational proposed. So this is what would go into our general fund budget, and we've already reviewed all this, really.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, on this page still. So we have the capital unfunded, and then under the green, it says operational proposed.
Okay,
It's on the back side of the big list.
okay. Oh, the unfunded? The
Yeah, so
operational
we have
unfunded?
operational proposed and operational unfunded. So these were all the requests that were received for operations. Is it dinner time, Mayor? Is that the?
No, we're not done yet. I apologize for that.
So under the proposed are the positions that we've already talked about, and then also the $30,500 worth of smaller items. On the unfunded, we have positions 6, 7, and 8. So if money were to become available, or if we were going to be doing some switching, what staff would recommend to the city council is that the next position funded would be another police officer. After that would be a cemetery full-time employee, and after that would be a recreation front desk manager. Now, the front desk manager is a little bit less, just because we already have a part-time person in that position, so it's partially funded, but not fully funded. Everything else on that list is either employees that were requested, or under library, they did have some operational requests, and at least as we put the budget together, we weren't able to fund all of those in the operational. So that should cover the capital and the operational recommendations with the city council. Again, you have all the narrative here for all of those. There's a lot to review there. And the last thing that I want to cover, I have a couple things, but we'll cover one last thing, and then we'll come back at the end of council meeting and cover some property tax stuff. So we have the CARE tax proposal for fiscal year 23. It's a one-page that looks like this. On top says CARE tax fiscal year 2023 proposal. So it shows our fund balance that we have in there, our estimated revenues for the upcoming fiscal year, and then we have the expenses which we have discussed. So for library, there's it says recreation center building improvements. That needs to be under rec. But so we have the small things that the library has requested, and then under the parks, we have the surface for Discovery Park. We have Shannon Field spectator shade covers and a few pieces of equipment. And under recreation, we have the ice machines and the pool lobby locker upgrade. We also have the yearly contribution out of the CARE tax for the Health Center Theater. And then below that, we have allocations that would be moved into the general fund for recreation, library, and parks in conjunction to help them with items that they might have needs for. $25,000 set aside for Arts Commission, and then $20,000. It says special projects, that's our special events money. So we use that to help fund concerts, or if we're going to pay somebody to help organize certain things, that's where that money comes from. So if all this spending happens in this manner, at the end of fiscal year '23, we'll still have about $140,000 in our fund balance. That also means that if we have something that pops up in December and we need more money, we do have a pool of money to pull from. So are there any questions on the care tax?
Yes.
Okay.
Talk to me about the self-watering flower pots.
The narrative should be in here.
I know, is it just a key? I mean, I don't know.
So Sherry's not here, so she can't specifically,
Oh, so it's for the library?
yeah.
Just said beautiful large flower pots would make the library entrances more inviting. That's what she.
Wait, so these were proposed last year? No, okay.
These are all proposed for this year.
So, and we know that these are actual costs, or have these gone up, or we feel confident that these are,
These are cost estimates as of the last 2 months.
okay, got it, thank you.
So the larger ticket items, there could be we've set a little money aside to help with cost over, particularly the pickleball courts at Discovery. We know we're gonna need money there because our number's 2 years old out there. And so we have some set aside for, if for some reason, because, you know, the economy's changing that quickly or costs are changing that quickly, that we can make sure that we can fund those types of things.
So the surface at Discovery Park, how old's Discovery Park now, like with the new renovations?
Was it 4 years ago?
It'll be 4 years this summer?
Kind of a surface treatment.
Okay. Can the care tax help pay for that?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's proposed under care tax.
And so, okay, never mind.
And then whatever happened to our Viking ship at the at the pool? Did that get,
No, the decision was to do the Whibbit instead.
okay, so let's make, I'll make believe I know what a whibbit is.
Okay,
Tell me what the plan is to do that then.
the Viking ship?
No, I guess the whibbit.
No, it's already there. So we did that last year.
Maybe I don't know what the whibbit is then.
It's a big inflatable the kids run across.
Well,
So-
that was before, we did that before.
No, we replaced it.
Oh,
We replaced it with a new one. So, sorry, there was a conversation had where we talked about that ship at, whatever it was, $250,000. And the feeling was it'd be better served if we just replaced and did some improvements with what we currently have.
Yeah.
Sid,
was
you
news to
remember
me.
that
I don't.
conversation? I mean,
Well, I thought we were gonna do the platforms and the stairs and at a much cheaper cost. That's kind of what I thought we were gonna do, but I could have been. out.
so, okay. I can't remember who was in the room, but we had a discussion. I know, I remember Sid was in there, and we had, I don't know what other council member was in the room, and we talked about that. And the decision was, let's recommend back to the council that we just do the Whibbit instead of the Viking ship.
But we already had a whibbit.
We replaced the Whibbit.
So we just
Yes,
replaced it.
we replaced the Whibbit.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we did discuss, because the issue with the Viking ship, it was gonna block the view of parents watching their kids.
Well, I remember that, and that's why I thought we were gonna do the pillars and.
Yes, we were gonna come up with a different idea to replace the mushroom, so it was something a little bit higher and more, the mushroom was still gonna be there, but something different, so you could see through to the other side. So I think that's what,
Yeah.
Okay,
the-
I don't
the
remember
public-
that part
public
of the
wanted-
discussion.
public-
I remember
there was a lot
repainting-
of public interest in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember repainting the mushroom. I don't remember a discussion
we
to
were gonna
do.
make it nicer.
Well,
don't know if
because
that
we
was-
had the stuff we looked at Orem and the cost, do you remember that? There was just
Yeah.
that little hump thing that was like $30,000, and we said, we're not gonna do that.
So I think maybe we can maybe re-engage with Tyler on that and just see, get some
Okay.
estimates, since that was part of the care tax proposal when we sent out to the residents, that we were gonna do something.
Yeah, it was,
Like
it
that.
was in the advertising, that's what we would do with the care tax money.
Okay, we'll get started back
I
on
mean, it may
Back-
not be the Viking ship because of the visibility, but it was something coming up off the mushroom.
that. Yeah,
I don't know what exactly, but.
Can I change the subject?
yes,
Thank you. Regarding the pickleball court, and some
Yeah.
of the neighbors, both the ones across the street and closest to that pickleballs, wanted to know if you're going to put the sound
Yes.
barriers on the thing.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, and that's saved us on Locust, is that we need to have those sound barriers to.
Isn't there some barriers on there right now?
Oh, no, there's no barriers.
Are you talking about on
anywhere.
the tennis courts?
Oh, you mean the new ones down?
The new
Discovery?
ones,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, gotcha. I thought you were talking
Yeah,
about the ones
yeah,
on
the new
on
ones.
Locust. Okay, gotcha.
Should we adjourn? I do have more, but we'll cover that at the end of council meeting.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
have a ton more.
Sorry, I
Just a
should have
couple
cut you off
logistical
for
items.
now. But we are past our any time, so I ask for a motion to adjourn. Have a
Second.
motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second, all in favor,